All right, Bills fans, let's talk about what really went down out there, because everyone seems to have a different version of the story. Some folks want to point the finger at Joe Brady. Others are ready to go after Brandon Beane for not stacking enough receiving talent. And of course, there's the group that thinks Josh Allen deserved it. But here's the truth. It's never just one person's fault. That's not how football works. When a passing offense sputters like that, it's the product of multiple gears grinding the wrong way all at once. So, instead of finding a single scapegoat, let's peel this thing apart and see what actually happened. I charted those 15 failed passing plays, and here's what stood out. 4 of them came down to one simple but brutal problem. Nobody got open. Josh Allen looked, scanned, and just didn't have a single clean window to throw into. 3 more of those plays were times when he did have an open receiver, but for one reason or another, he turned it down and worked deeper into his progression. By the time he tried to make something happen, the play had already collapsed. There was another snap where Josh and Khalil Shakir weren't on the same page. You remember that screen to the right? Josh tried to lead him into open space, but Shakir stayed static instead of drifting forward. It's just a miscommunication, but it turned a potential gain into a wasted down. Then there were 2 drops, the kind that kill momentum and make everyone in the stadium groan. 2 more plays were the result of inaccurate throws from Josh, and 3 were pure protection breakdowns. That's 15 failed plays, and none of them look the same. It's not all on Josh, it's not all on the receivers, and it's not all on the line. It's a blend of everything falling slightly short at the same time. Now, the part that's especially frustrating? Those 2 inaccurate throws from Josh both went to Keon Coleman. And look, Keon's had his struggles this season, no doubt, but on those 2 plays he actually got great vertical separation. On one of them, he kept his line perfectly, had leverage on the defender, but the ball sailed out of bounds, uncatchable. On the other, Josh underthrew it. Keon still almost made a play on a ricochet, but it should have been a clean, deep completion. Those were legit opportunities to change the tone of the game, but they slipped away because the connection wasn't there. And when you zoom out, the numbers paint a pretty clear picture. Josh's average time to throw in that game was 3.31 seconds, the highest mark of any quarterback in Week 10, even before the Monday night matchup. That stat screams one thing: no rhythm. It wasn't a quick, confident passing performance. It was a quarterback hanging in, waiting, hesitating, double-checking reads, and sometimes trying to make magic when the play design had already unraveled. When you take that long to get the ball out, something's off. Either you don't trust what you're seeing, or you don't trust the guys protecting you or catching the ball. And that brings us to what Josh himself said after that Carolina game. It's all about trust. Trusting the scheme. Trusting your eyes. Trusting the protection. Trusting your receivers to make plays. Right now, that trust just isn't there. We all saw the Kansas City game. That was Josh at his best, firing on all cylinders, everything clicking. But here's the reality. 3 of the last 4 games haven't looked like that. The passing game's been clunky, inconsistent, and too often out of sync. Sure, you've got to acknowledge the missing pieces. Dalton Kincaid went down in this one, and that's a big deal. He's one of their best separators, and without him and Joshua Palmer, you lose 2 key players who help open up the field. But even with that context, this offense is built to be efficient through the air. It's supposed to hum. Instead, it's been coughing and sputtering for weeks. When the system's designed around rhythm passing and you can't find that rhythm, everything else starts to crumble. Now, let's talk about that interception everyone's been debating. After watching the tape, it's pretty clear what the Bills were trying to do. They wanted to hit Tyrell Shavers on an in-cut route. The design was good. 2 shallow routes to pull coverage out, creating space behind them. But the whole thing broke down at the line of scrimmage. Shavers got jammed by Jack Jones, couldn't get into his route on time, and that delay killed the timing. Meanwhile, the Dolphins rushed 7. The Bills only had 6 blockers. You can do the math. Someone's getting through. Protection broke down. Josh tried to hang in. The route wasn't ready, and the throw came out late. The ball ended up intercepted, not because it was a bad read, but because the timing and protection never synced up. For the record, that pass wasn't meant for Dawson Knox. It was all about Shavers, and the jam ruined the rhythm. From a schematic perspective, Miami's defense deserves a ton of credit. Their simulated pressures were outstanding. If you're not familiar with the concept, a simulated pressure is when a defense shows you a heavy blitz look, a bunch of bodies crowding the line, but only sends 4 rushers. The trick is you don't know which 4. Maybe it's a linebacker, maybe it's a corner, maybe a defensive end drops into coverage instead. It's organized chaos. It confuses protection calls and messes with a quarterback's read. That's exactly what Miami did. Anthony Weaver, coming from that Mike McDonald coaching tree, dialed it up beautifully. Those looks created just enough hesitation to throw Buffalo's timing off. Josh never looked fully comfortable in the pocket because the picture kept changing on him. And here's the thing. That strategy was perfect against this version of the Bills' offense. You've got a unit that already struggles with consistency, and now you're forcing them to guess who's coming on every snap. The offensive line can't get into a groove, the receivers are adjusting routes under pressure, and Josh starts to press. You end up with plays where everyone's reacting instead of executing. That's how you end up with long developing plays, off-balance throws, and drives that stall before they ever get going. But if we're going to talk about what really made this game tough to watch, we got to bring up game script. A lot of fans roll their eyes when they hear that term, but it matters. The Bills were chasing the entire time. Down 16, you're in comeback mode. That changes everything about how you call plays. Suddenly you're running way less play action, 16% compared to their season average of 28. Screens drop 2 from 13% to 7. And here's what's wild. The Bills are top 5 in the entire league in yards per play on both play action and screens. That's where they thrive. But when you fall behind early, you abandon those easy button throws that help Josh get into rhythm. Instead, it becomes a pure drop-back game, and that's exactly what Miami wanted. They could pin their ears back, show those simulated pressures, and make Josh hold the ball. That's not the formula for success. When you move past the passing struggles and dig into the run game, things don't look much better. In fact, this was the least productive rushing performance the Bills have had all season. They didn't even crack 100 yards on the ground, finishing with 87 on 22 carries. For a team that's prided itself on balance lately, that's a step backward. James Cook had 13 carries for 53 yards, and if you look closer, the play calling tells a story. 8 of those runs were gap scheme designs, 5 were zone runs. That's not unusual for Buffalo, but the timing and rhythm of those calls just didn't make sense. Even Joe Brady admitted after the game that they ran it too much early, and that's something you could feel from the start. When you're facing a defense like Miami's, one that thrives on early down disruption and simulated pressure, the key is to strike fast through the air, control the tempo, and keep them reacting. Instead, Buffalo leaned too heavily on the ground game in the first quarter, trying to set a tone that simply wasn't there. You could tell from the first few drives that they were trying to be balanced for balance's sake, not because it was what the defense was giving them. And that's what hurts, because there were clear opportunities to attack through the air, especially early. The Bills just didn't take them. What made things even worse was how many times they ran straight into stacked boxes. Over half of James Cook's carries, 54%, came against loaded fronts. When you're outnumbered at the line of scrimmage like that, you're fighting uphill. Miami's linebackers, especially Jordan Brooks, were all over it. Brooks was a monster in that game, filling gaps, taking away cutback lanes, and shutting down plays before they could even develop. The Dolphins' front played disciplined, gap-sound football, which is exactly what you need to stop Buffalo's run game. And here's something that's been on my mind. This was only the second divisional game of the year for Buffalo. Usually, that second matchup against a familiar opponent tells you a lot about who you really are. Teams adjust, they see your tendencies, and they test whether you've learned anything from the first meeting. That's why this one feels concerning. Miami had a plan. They knew how to contain the Bills' favorite concepts, and Buffalo didn't seem ready with answers. That's not what you want to see from an offense that's supposed to evolve as the season goes on. Miami's young defensive linemen deserve credit too. Jordan Phillips and Kenneth Grant are coming into their own, and it showed. They controlled the line of scrimmage, held leverage, and forced Buffalo to earn every yard the hard way. There were no easy cutbacks for James Cook, no clean second-level runs, no rhythm. Everything felt forced. Every carry looked like it took maximum effort for minimal gain. That's not a winning formula. And when you think about it, the issues in the run game tied directly into the passing struggles. When your ground attack can't threaten a defense, they stop respecting it. That's exactly what happened here. Miami started sitting on the pass, disguising pressures, daring Josh Allen to beat them through the air against unpredictable coverage looks. It's all connected. The lack of rhythm in the run game fed the lack of rhythm in the passing game, and the entire offensive identity just kind of fell apart. Now let's look at how the snaps were distributed. The offense ran 68 plays. Josh Allen was out there for 65 of them, with Mitch Trubisky getting just a handful in mop-up time. James Cook led the backfield with 34 snaps, while Ty Johnson saw 27. That's closer than usual, and it makes you wonder if Cook's ankle injury played a bigger role than they let on. It also seemed like Buffalo was trying to rotate bodies to keep fresh legs against that aggressive Miami front, but the results just weren't there. Ty Johnson pass blocked only 3 times, so this wasn't about protecting Josh Moore. It was just a split workload that didn't make much difference. Ray Davis got 7 snaps, Reggie Gilliam 18, mostly in heavy formations that didn't go anywhere. At tight end, Dawson Knox logged 46 snaps and Jackson Haas 29. Dalton Kincaid had 18 before leaving with the injury, which was a huge loss. Once he went down, the offense lost one of its best mismatch creators. Alec Anderson got on the field for 1 play, just a cameo. Among the wide receivers, Khalil Shakir played the most with 45 snaps, followed closely by Keon Coleman with 42. Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, and Tyrell Shavers were all clustered in the mid-20s. Every starting lineman played all 68 offensive snaps, which tells you it wasn't a rotation issue. It was execution. Then you flip over to the defense, and it's a mixed bag. Tua Tagovailoa went 15 for 21, threw for 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. On paper, that looks decent for the Bills, but context matters. They barely pressured him. Only 5 pressures on 21 dropbacks. That's not nearly enough. When Tua can play in rhythm, he's dangerous, and that's exactly what happened. Those 2 interceptions? Honestly, they were arm punts. The Bills made good plays on the ball, sure, but the situations worked in Miami's favor. One of them came on 3rd down and flipped field position like a long punt. The second one had a penalty on the return that pushed Buffalo back near its own 12-yard line. So, yeah, turnovers look great in a box score, but they didn't swing momentum the way you'd hope. The real problem was the lack of pressure. Tua had time to sit back, go through his progressions, and hit his rhythm throws. Miami used motion brilliantly to create free releases for their receivers, which stressed Buffalo's communication and opened up clean passing lanes. You could see how deliberate it was. They moved guys around pre-snap, forced the defense to adjust, and attack the weak spots. Tua didn't have to do anything crazy. He just executed within structure. When he needed to extend plays, he did. And that's what makes this version of Miami so dangerous. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. Whispers are getting louder in Western New York, and they all carry the same name, SHAQUIL Barrett. The veteran edge rusher, long admired for his relentless motor and championship pedigree, is said to be on the verge of donning Bills blue. While no official announcement has surfaced, several league insiders have hinted that the deal is as good as done. In Buffalo, the rumor mill is churning faster than a Lake Erie snowstorm. Barrett, a proven disruptor off the edge, could be exactly what Buffalo's defense needs. After seasons marked by near misses and playoff heartbreak, the Bills' front office seems determined to retool its pass rush with leadership and experience. Barrett brings both in abundance. 2 Super Bowl rings, a sack title, and a reputation for making quarterbacks miserable when it matters most. Sources close to the team suggest the move has been in motion for weeks, sparked by quiet meetings between Barrett's representatives and Buffalo's management. One league executive described the talks as measured but motivated, hinting that the Bills see Barrett as more than a short-term rental. They want his presence in the locker room as much as his pressure off the edge, the source added. Fans naturally are buzzing. Social media has exploded with mock-ups of Barrett in a Bills uniform, and the idea of pairing him with Buffalo's existing defensive core has sent optimism through the roof. The timing also feels deliberate, a statement of intent from a franchise that knows its championship window is wide open but narrowing fast. Still, there's an air of secrecy around the whole affair. Team officials have stayed silent, declining to confirm or deny the speculation. Barrett himself has been cryptic in recent interviews, smiling when asked about potential destinations but giving nothing away. Yet for all the denials and deflections, the energy around Orchard Park tells its own story. Something big is brewing. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.